Hi, so I did my new student dialogue on is education, higher education, a right or a privilege? And in the group, I thought that we had pretty good dialogue achieved. Although towards the start, everybody was kind of tentative. We didn't really get a good group talk going more towards the end of the dialogue itself. I would say that nobody was really judging of each other, so people were open to sharing ideas, but it just took a while for everybody to get going. I would say that I played more of a in-between role in terms of an active voice or more reserved voice. When I saw ideas that were more important towards me, I shared what I thought, but in minor cases, like where I didn't really have an opinion on it, I didn't really offer anything to say. I thought that overall the group dialogue was pretty effective, and it allowed us to connect with other incoming freshmen. I think the dialogue is an important component of the CU1000 because in college, a lot of it has to do with sharing your ideas with other group members and listening to other people's ideas to get work done. And it's also important once you leave college and go into the workforce. It's a key component. So now to address the fact to talk about the education, is it a right or privilege? And although America does say that higher education is an opportunity for everybody, it has turned out to be a falsehood because a lot of people rather, are denied the opportunity to go into college for a variety of reasons, and one of them is socioeconomic status. In the new student dialogue, we watched the movie The Corridor of Shame, which is about a lot of public high schools in counties that are essentially located along this highway in South Carolina. And a lot of the kids there are from counties that have low socioeconomic status and therefore don't have good materials and they don't have good get a good education from the public school because they don't have the funding. And you could see that they're learning in buildings that were from the 1800s that didn't have heating or air conditioning, the waters didn't work, and they didn't have any materials. In fact, the books in there say one day man may land on the moon when it happened decades earlier, and it just shows you that it's not providing them a good education that they would need to get into college. Furthermore, I wanted to address more about what my high school is like, and while I had a wide range of people who went to my high school from pretty much every socioeconomic status, so we had a pretty average high school, and even though I saw lots of people that were in low socioeconomic status that did go on to college, so it makes me think that while it doesn't help that the counties do not have the best materials, I think that students that can apply themselves enough can find a way to get into college and overcome this poor socioeconomic status. Another thing that I think is a big problem is that college has just become so expensive that it's driving a lot of people away from going to college, or rather even being able to go to college. In fact, like private schools are now costing upwards of $60,000 a year, so that's making students get tons of debt when they come out, which is also driving away lots of people's desire to go to college because they know they're going to come out with lots of debt that they might be paying for the rest of their lives. That was, I know, a big factor when I was considering what college to go to, was the amount of money that I would have to be paying and how much debt I would come out with. I know that when I considered other private schools that were up to $60,000 a year, even with the scholarships that they did provide me, I wasn't able to afford there and be coming out with no debt, which was one of the biggest things for me because I did not want to come out with debt that I'd have to be paying for the rest of my life. Another big factor that I considered when I went to Clemson was the fact that I did get a scholarship from here to go here, and it wasn't a lot cheaper, but it was a state school, so it was less expensive in comparison to some of the private schools that I had considered going to. So overall, I would say that socioeconomic status does have a large role in students' ability to go on to college, and for that reason, I think that the expense that is involved with college should be addressed. But I do think that overall, even after seeing the movie The Corridor of Shame, that higher education should be considered a privilege, not necessarily a right, but it should be a more accessible right to students that want to go to college, not just one that only the people with higher socioeconomic status can afford, because I feel like the major thing that's keeping people out of college now and keeping it from being just a right is the fact that college is costing so much and students do not want to come out with a lot of debt. So with that, I think that was my opinion on whether I think students should be, or higher education should be considered a right or a privilege in the United States, and some of the reasons why I think that our dialogues are considered a key component for the CE 1000 course.